Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The real time in the outside world, I believe, is 18:30. So I'm going to start the meeting in case anybody is watching. Good evening, I'm Councillor Springett, and as Chairman of the Licensing Committee, I would like to welcome you to this meeting. Just first of all, I'd just like to say that I think we're all aware of the passing of Councillor Marion Ring, and I think we'd like to send our condolences to the family. I'm not going to do the minute silence because that will be done at full council, but just to say that we are aware, we're very sad, and that we send our condolences to the family. Thank you. Tonight's proceedings will be webcast live and recorded for playback, but if anyone else is intending to record these proceedings, can you let me know now? This is not to stop you, but to ensure that those in the room know that this is taking place. If the fire alarm should sound, please remain seated and the Democratic Services Officer to my right will assess the situation and give further instructions on the evacuation of the building if necessary. Item 1 on the agenda is apologies for absence. Apologies have been received from Councillors Coates, Hinder and Nagy, and I understand Councillor Parfitt-Reid has been held up by a jammed HGV somewhere near Marden, so she's on her way, but she will be a little bit late. Are there any other apologies I need to know about? No? Thank you. Have we got any substitute members? I see some fresh faces, no substitute members. No, thank you. Item 3 is urgent items. We have no urgent items this evening. Item 4, visiting members. I can't see anybody sitting in the audience. Item 5 is disclosures by members and officers. Are there any disclosures by members or officers? No, thank you very much. Item 6 is disclosures of lobbying. Have any members of the committee been lobbied? No, and I haven't either, thank you. Item 7 is exempt items. There's no yellow pages, so I move that all items be taken in public as proposed. Is that agreed? Thank you very much. Item 8, minutes of the meeting held on the 9th of November 2023. I've got the minutes here, I've had a look through. Have any members got any comments on the accuracy of those minutes? So if that's okay, I move that the minutes of the meeting are held on the 9th of November 2023 be approved as a correct record and signed. Is this agreed? Thank you, members. Item 9 is a question and answer session for local residents, and we haven't got any questions coming in. And items 10 is questions from members to the chairman. I haven't been made aware of any. Item 11 is Maidstone pavement licensing. The report will be introduced by Sharon Banborough, who's the head of licensing. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So before you is a report which seeks to get your approval for 2 elements. So just a quick reminder about pavement licensing for those of you who may not remember. The licensing of tables and chairs on the highway used to be done by the county council, and under temporary regulations was given to the district borough council level back in July 2020 as part of the reaction to pandemic and lockdowns, and to enable a fast track process for premises to be able to put tables and chairs on the pavement where they couldn't do before, in order to serve the public when they couldn't serve them indoors. That legislation has been extended several times now, and under the Levelling Up and Regeneration Act 2023, they've permanently moved it to our level. However, we're still waiting for a commencement date for the legislation. However, it's incumbent upon us to have our policy, which we had written back in 2020, never came through committee formally because it couldn't, because we weren't having committees back then and it was all very much in a rush. Now we've updated that policy to reflect the legislative changes, which we must update it to do, to have yourselves consider it for adoption We've also taken the opportunity to just tweak some of the wording in it where we felt it could be better worded. And then the second element is to set fees. So under the current system, and it is the current system as is still, there is a maximum fee that can be charged for a pavement licence, which is £100, and that was a statutory cap that was set under the temporary regulations. It also said things like that the minimum term of a licence was 3 months and the maximum term was 1 year. Those things have changed under the new legislation. So in order to reflect what it actually costs us to produce a licence and then do the compliance checking thereafter and writing and adjusting policy and such like, we've put together some costings and proposed some fees for various timelines in terms of a renewal or renew, and we've also put in a fee for a 2-year licence, because under the new legislation they've extended the maximum duration of a licence can be up to 2 years, and also it's taken away that minimum 3 months. So I thought it was an opportunity to bring in a fee in consideration for a pavement licence where it might be, for example, related to a special event, whether it be one day, whether it be a couple of weeks, a Christmas market type of event where somebody might want to have a pavement licence for just a short term. So what you've got before you is the proposals to change the policy and consideration to adopt that, and then secondly the proposed fees that I've put together. I'm happy to take any questions, hopefully which I can answer.
Thank you, Mrs. Bamborough. Councillor Parfitt-Reid, welcome. You made it in the end.
I do apologise to everybody.
That's no problem. Have you got any disclosable pecuniary interests or disclosures of lobbying?
I do not.
You do not. Thank you very much. And we've just had the presentation on the first item, which was item 11. Members, for those that haven't seen them, page 26 is where the fees are. So if I look round, has anybody got any questions? Councillor English.
Well, not so much a question, and just like my colleague, Councillor Joy, I represent High Street Ward, where a vast number of these are located or likely to be located. So it's I think it's been fair to say that we've had mixed experiences over pavement, the current situation with pavement licences, some very good, some a little not so good. I would have to say that having read through this policy, it does, I think, move us onto somewhat firmer ground in dealing with these, and that is much more that's needed. And it's also a good thing to see that we're, well, not going to be making a profit, but it's not going to cost us so negatively, because with the £100 cap, we were undoubtedly doing more work than we were able to charge for. Some of the more complicated ones in and around the market buildings have been quite expensive to assess. So I would say that having read this report, I think it's well written, does what it says on the tin, and we should move forward and adopt it. So I therefore propose that.
Thank you. Do you have a seconder for that, Councillor Joy? Do you wish to speak now, or you've got nothing to add at the moment? Okay. Has anybody else got any comments they want to add on this policy? I mean, I'm very pleased with this. I think this is progress, actually, because it's always been a difficult issue with pavement seating. Obviously, the fees are a little bit of a guess at this stage, but by the time we come to reviewing the fees, we'll have a better idea of if the costs are vastly different from what's been estimated. So I'm very content to go with this. Anybody else wish to comment anything before I take the vote? Thank you. Well, the following recommendations are made to this committee: that the committee consider the proposed pavement licensing policy, drafted to take into account recent changes to legislation, and adopt it to take effect upon commencement of Schedule 22 of the Levelling Up and Regeneration Act 2023. The draft policy is attached as Appendix A, and the second part of the recommendation is to approve the proposed fees for applications set out in Appendix B to take effect upon commencement of Schedule 22 of the Levelling Up and Regeneration Act 2023. That's proposed by Councillor English, seconded by Councillor Joy. All those in favour? It's unanimous. Thank you very much. That moves us on to item 12, which is the policy review consultation update, which is on page 26 of your agenda. And this report will be introduced by Lorraine Neal, the Senior Licensing Officer. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, members. The report is basically for committee to review, consider the comments that were received in response to the consultation that was carried out by the Policy Department. The consultation ran from the 25th of September to the 12th of November, and that document that highlights all the responses is attached as Appendix 1. The report makes the following recommendations: to note the information contained in the taxi policy consultation, card payment and vehicle age document, which is attached as Appendix 1. 2, I've amended slightly because obviously it said draft taxi licensing policy, but the policy is actually the Hackney Carriage and Private Hire licensing policy. So it's to approve the draft Hackney Carriage and Private Hire licensing policy. And 3, that the amendment concerning vehicle age and mileage be immediate, with the mandatory requirement to provide the new payment facility to be implemented from the 15th of February. And because of that comment, there are some minor amendments to the actual draft document. So at page 42, the date there is actually amended to the 11th of January, as we want the vehicle age and mileage to be immediate. And at page 88, where it says card machine, it says with effect from the 15th of February 2024. So that then highlights the 2 dates that are being requested. One further amendment.
Sorry, what was that second one? On page 88.
With effect from
Okay.
the
Yeah, I was trying to find where that
February
was.
2024.
Yeah.
Sorry, members, just on the front sheet as well, the date needs to be amended to 2029 because it's a 5-year review period.
Apologies. I mean, members will be aware that at the meeting on 14th of September, we did discuss the 2 policy amendments, which were to adjust the new vehicle entry level requirements permanently to 4 years of age with a maximum mileage restriction of 60,000 miles, and implement an exit age of 8 years for private hire vehicles. That was running on a pilot scheme, and obviously there's been no major issues with that, and so it's recommended that we go with that as a permanent criteria. And the other policy amendment is that Hackney Carriage vehicle proprietors be required to offer alternative payment options to their customers, which include card machine payments as well. The responses are obviously in the document that's attached as Appendix 1, but there were 97 responses from the trade. Overall, the response from the consultation is positive. 81% of respondents are in favour of the change to the vehicle ages, and 76% of the respondents are in favour of offering alternate payment methods, including card machines. So members' available options: option 1, to agree the draft Hackney Carriage and Private Hire licensing policy 2024 to 2029, including both of the proposed amendments as outlined in point 2.1 of the report. We've already discussed the dates when things get implemented. Or option 2, to amend the draft Hackney Carriage and Private Hire licensing policy 2024 to 2029 to contain either of the proposed amendments rather than both, as outlined in point 2.1 of the report. Option 3, that no change be made and the Council continue to rely on the current Hackney Carriage and Private Hire licensing policy. This isn't recommended. Our preferred option is that members agree to the revised policy at Appendix 2, It remain valid for a period of 5 years in accordance with statutory standards unless it becomes necessary to make further revisions beforehand following changes to legislation or local circumstances. The proposed policy aims to improve on the current policy while striking a balance between the interests of the trade, the public and the licensing authority. And should members approve the revised policy, the amendment for vehicle age and mileage is immediate, and also propose that the mandatory requirement for the implementation of the new payment facility is 15th of February 2024. I think that covers it all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Neal. I've got Councillor Trublinski, Councillor English, and then Councillor Fort. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Actually, I'm quite pleased with this. I think it's very good. And what I think is really pleasing is the amount of support it's got from the trade itself, which is nice. The only question I would ask is, are we happy with that 15th of February date for the payment machines? Knowing what the banks and people are like these days with filling in forms for money laundering, etc., etc., is that a realistic time for people to get those machines in place by?
It's not just machines, it's any kind of alternative payment method. So they can pay by Apple Pay, they can pay Google Pay, they can pay in lots of other ways. I think 6 weeks is long enough for them to get something in place. And if they have a very good reason as to why they haven't, and obviously there's a bit of leeway for some of them, but the longer you give them, the longer they'll take, basically. So that's the reasoning.
Thank you. Councillor English.
Yes, I think it is human nature, isn't it? You do something immediately, or you, like me, leave it to the day before, and you sit up all night doing it. The report is most encouraging to see the level of response, that's encouraging in itself, and to see the level of support that the proposal has got is also very reassuring. And also, I know it's a cold night, but I imagine that if the trade did have major issues with this, we would have had some representations or presence this evening, because they are very active on their members' behalf, which is quite right, of course, so there should be. But so both in the positive and the negative senses, we can see that this policy is welcomed by the practitioners, and that suggests to me that we're going in the right direction as a licensing authority, so I'm quite happy to support the recommendations as effectively set out on page 27, which is option 1, more or less. Might need some wording about the amendment of the dates there, but otherwise it's option 1. So we can move ahead with some confidence. I formally propose that.
Thank you. Is that a proposal to accept that recommendation? It is, thank you. Does anybody like to second that at this stage, or do you wish to wait? Councillor Garden, second, thank you. I've got Councillor Fort to speak, and then Councillor Garden. Councillor Fort.
My question's actually just been answered. It was what Siggy was asked. But I'm quite glad to see that most of our taxi drivers, or those that participated in the consultation, are already taking non-cash payments, so that's good. Yeah, thank you. But I think it's a very well drafted document, and I support it.
Thank you, Councillor Fort. Councillor Garton.
Yeah, as far as Councillor Trublinski says, I think the time limit for 15th of February may be a little bit short. Should we not just extend it to 15th of March? That gives a bit more time for us to communicate to the trade as well as the trade to sort themselves. But generally, I'm very pleased with the response by the trade, particularly with the payment. I think we had only a few drivers who were totally opposed to that. I would like to pick up on 2 comments here regarding electric vehicles and the age of the vehicle. One respondent writes, if the taxi is electric, they should not be limited mileage for the vehicle. As electric taxi, it's emission free, so therefore they should be exempt from the mileage requirement. I totally disagree with that. comment, because we are not only talking about the engine itself and the reliability of the engine, where this may be a valid point, but we're also talking about other important items such as steering, such as suspension, etc. And I was once a witness and was unfortunately involved at that as a victim party of it, where a public hire vehicle broke down on the M11, not a Maidstone vehicle, I must stress, but it was due to the steering failing on that vehicle, and of course a multi-vehicle crash on the M11. So I think this comment is not valid. However, I do take some sort of sympathy with the further down that page, the comment where it says electric vehicles are expensive. And I think in the years to come, we should be open to review this policy on the age and on the affordability for the driver, as I'm sure this committee has always done. So I would like to give assurance to the trade that this is not written in stone for all eternity, and that this committee is reviewing this policy quite regular as we do.
Thank you. Have you got any comments to come back on that at all?
I mean, we've got a very vague environmental considerations of the policy at the moment, and every time we've brought up green vehicles with the trade, they're vehemently against it, which is why at the moment we're not really looking at it. But when the trend starts to go in that direction, we will obviously look at it and amend the policy at that point.
I just asked if the issue of the date is something we should consider, and Mrs. Neal said she will email the trade tomorrow to let them know of these changes. I think we could perhaps add into that if any particular drivers have an issue with meeting that date, would they kindly contact you? Would that be a way around that problem of changing the date, do you think, as a possible? Okay. All right, I've got Councillor Parfitt-Reid and then Councillor Joy. Councillor Parfitt-Reid.
Yeah, just on the date thing, I mean, I really don't think it's necessary to amend the date. There's so many forms of payment. You can get a Zello machine almost overnight. You can do a bank transfer. There's plenty of alternatives. So I think we're just delaying the inevitable. I think let's just crack on with it, to be honest. And as you say, if we're giving people the option that if they have a particular issue, they can contact us, then I think the best thing is to move towards this policy, which I think it is certainly, you know, as a woman travelling in a cab, it's just safer to have that option. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Councillor Parfitt-Reid. Councillor Joy.
Yeah, I too was going to disagree with the change, so I think it's all been said now. Thank you.
So I think the consensus is we'll leave the date as it is, and I'm sure if a driver has an issue that they will contact the licensing team anyway. They're very good. I mean, in all the dealings we've had with the trade, they're not backwards in coming forwards if there's an issue. I mean, I thought it was a very good report, and I thought that the support was very good. And part of this report was from the trade on the age of vehicles, and the other part was from us on the payment method. So I think it's worked very well. Does anybody else wish to speak on this item? So I've got the recommendations that have been proposed by Councillor English and seconded by Councillor Garton, which are on page 27. I'll take all three together. Number one is to note the information contained in the taxi policy consultation, card payment and vehicle age document attached as at Appendix 1. Number two is to approve the draft Hackney carriage and private hire licensing policy for adoption in Appendix 2. And number three is that the amendment concerning vehicle age and mileage be immediate, with the mandatory requirement to provide the new payment facility to be implemented from the 15th of February 2023. If I can ask all those in favour. Oh, Councillor English, sorry.
It should say something like the policy document set out with the two amendments that we...
With the two amended dates, that's very correct. Thank you for correcting me, Councillor English. Oh, it is 2024. Well spotted. Do you wish me to read that again, or are you happy that we'll include that wording with the amended dates? And it is implemented from 15th of February 2024. Although well spotted. All those in favour, please. I believe that is unanimous. Thank you very much. And there's nothing else on the agenda, so I declare the meeting closed. Thank you very much.